One.
Today, I'm going to be speaking to you about peer engagement through lived experience lens and lived experience leadership and biases towards people with lived experience. And we're going to be talking about building respect. Next. Nothing about us without us. You know, it's a familiar phrase. They say yes to nothing about us without us, but talk around us, about us, without us. Hey, people with lived experience, you're making a difference. No matter what they say, going with lived experience is the way to change the landscape. Now is the time to seize the day. We need to be walking with and beside, not behind or just along for the ride. There is more important, there is no more important word than that of lived experience. It needs to be heard. Next. So stand up and be strong because you have the right, you belong. Even our strongest ally will speak in undertones that belie how they really feel. But we know that our knowledge, experience are important and real. So bang your drum to your own beat and carry with you your strength and will and spirit and wisdom gained from the street to raise those up whose feet still walk on concrete. Next. We're talking about peers. Why are we discussing unconscious biases? I think we're discussing it today. I feel like I need to discuss it today because it's an everyday occurrence. Happens all the time. And we need to change the dynamic of that and change the thinking so it doesn't happen anymore. And people out there who are listening to me now really understand what I'm talking about. I think to do this, we have to understand what the definition of a peer is, because we're talking about conscious biases towards peers. The Merriam-Webster dictionary definition, the very first one that pops up is one who is equal of standing to another. I think somehow along the line, we've lost that. One who is, just think about that for a second, one who is equal, of equal standing to another. Why is it that today, when we talk about peers, when we think about peers, we think of peers as something just a level below the rest of us, the rest of organizations. When they bring a peer in, it's not like they're the same as the other frontline workers. They are something just a little bit less than, a little bit below standard to that. But Merriam-Webster says it's one who is of equal standing to another. Next. And why are we discussing unconscious biases again? Well, because it's detrimental. You know, I'll give you a few experiences that I've gone through with biases towards myself as a peer and towards others as a peer. I, at one time, took a position with a really large national organization, and I was brought in as a peer support person. And one of the things that struck me immediately was the fact that as a peer, I had a big role to play. I had a lot of work to do, but being brought in as a peer meant 40% less than the rest of the staff. They may have had a BSc behind their name. I had LE behind my name. I had LE behind my name, but it didn't matter. I got paid 40% less. I had a big workload, and I was expected to bring people together, and I did that. But the problem is that what happened was I didn't get the respect of my peers in the office for doing my work. When I was bringing in people to the meetings, when I was engaging folks out there, I was called into the manager's office and asked, are you bribing participants with drugs and alcohol? There's a big rumor going around that that's what you're doing. That's why people are doing what they are. That's why you're able to move people forward, because you're bribing them. Questions like this follow peers around constantly. And the reason why I was able to develop success with the participants was because I spoke to them as if they were my brothers and they were my sisters. I speak to the premier the same way as I speak to any individual on the street. And that's one of the things that came up over and over and over again. And that was, you don't talk to us like we're 15. You don't talk to us like we're 15, like the others do. You give us respect. So many times, people think that they have to talk to folks who are vulnerable, you know, in that maternal speak. I call it maternal speak, and it means speaking at a downwards angle to somebody. Instead of speaking at an even level, you're speaking at a downwards angle. Maternal speak, you talk to them like your mother or your and speaking to a child. We can't, you know, it's a sign of disrespect. And I know that people do not mean disrespect, but it's an unconscious bias that is overtaking, and you can't be continuing this kind of behavior. I've had people say, I feel so disrespected. I feel so insulted when people speak to me like this. But this is a sidebar of what unconscious bias does. It creates an unlevel playing field. I want to talk to you a little bit about, you know, acceptance of roles. I was never accepted in that role. And I know I speak to frontline workers, I speak to outreach workers who find that their roles are never being accepted by their peers in the office, by their peers, you know, in the organization. They develop great relationships with the folks out there on the front lines, in the tents, in the camps, but they're not accepted by the peers in the office. Why does this happen? I think it stems back from the history of when people with lived experience were starting to become a factor in the housing and homeless through the at-home chez soi. We were brought in, sat around tables, we said nothing, got paid nothing. And I think that the conception or perception of people with lived experience, you know, having nothing great to say probably stems from that. But, you know, we've evolved, we've come a long way since 12 years ago, since the beginning of the at-home chez soi program. Also, I think that maybe it's becoming an acceptable norm, acceptable social norm that people with lived experience are maybe not as competent as anybody else. We are. You know, we're making huge strides in the business of housing and homelessness. You know, we have relationships with government, but we still are referred to as something less than. Next slide, please. The results of unconscious biases, you know, they're pretty severe. Lived experience doesn't inform programs the way it should. My good friend Adam Vaughan, the former parliamentary secretary of the House Commons, has said to me many, many times, lived experience needs to inform programs, needs to be at the head tables so we can change the landscape of housing and homelessness, and we can improve and reduce homelessness. You know, one of the big things about talking down and not seeing the value of lived experience is that it erodes confidence. One of the greatest casualties of homelessness is the loss of life, obviously, but the loss of self-respect, self-worth, self-dignity, and self-confidence. And when somebody continually tends not to believe you, tends not to believe you in your role, tends not to believe that you have what it takes to build a relationship, it does erode confidence. When you go to work every single day and that is, it follows you into the office. The minute you walk in the office, you feel that oppressive situation, it erodes your confidence and takes you back. You might have the confidence to say things, but what happens is a person tends not to speak up. And that happens to a lot of folks who have lived experience. It holds people back again because of lack of confidence. When you have all the confidence in the world, you can go forward. You can march through that door and make changes and talk about changes and have your voice heard. But when you don't have that confidence, it holds you back and it keeps you from moving forward. And that is really, really critical because, as we know, people with lived experience voices need to be heard when it comes to housing and homelessness. And it reduces the effectiveness of the homeless programs. Of course it does. The lived experience perspective needs to be there, walking right alongside the Bachelor of Social Work, the master's degrees and the PhDs. We need to be there, walking right beside you. without our perspective, it's the same old, same old. As you know, we have not done a really, really good job of reducing homelessness over the last decade. It's, in fact, it's exploding. It's going up. We need to have that voice of lived experience. But if you don't, the effectiveness is lost on homeless program. And people don't believe the achievements of people with lived experience. That happens so terribly often. I spoke to a friend of mine the other day who's got her master's degree, a person with lived experience who's got her master's degree. And she said, people don't even believe I have a master's degree. Never mind the fact that I used to work for the United Nations. Never mind the fact that I was there when the U.S. had talks with Germany over a really important issue. I can't remember what it is right now, but people don't believe that I was actually there. Why? Because I've lived experience. I've run across that so many times myself. I've been very fortunate to walk through a lot of doors of opportunity and take advantage of those opportunities and speak to some very high-powered people in Ottawa and be part of many wonderful things. But you know what? I can't talk about it to a lot of people because they don't believe it. I can manage a housing program, but people do not want to believe that people with lived experience can achieve better things. Is it because they have their own limitations of what they can do? Is that what it is? If I can't do it, why can a person with lived experience, how can a person with lived experience do it? It's a big question, and we really need to change the perception of the expectations of people with lived experience. If they're low, chances are they may live up to those low expectations, but people with lived experience can really outreach their own grasp and their own reach and achieve wonderful things. Next slide, please. Building respect. The only way we're going to change unconscious biases is by building respect. And that means having constructive conversations with people with lived experience. Actually tuning in to our program here today, where Carrie and I are talking about lived experience and how to improve their lives. Constructive conversation. What is it? It's meeting on a regular basis with a person with a lived experience who is working in your organization, or leaning on that person with lived experience for some advice, or asking them for advice on things that they may have an answer to that you may not, from their different perspective. You may have the answer as well, but that person with lived experience will have a different perspective on what that answer will be. If you're a manager, it's bringing that person with lived experience in and having conversations with them and debriefing them after a day of work out there with the participants. What it isn't is having a team meeting and having your person with lived experience being put in a corner and being verbally beat up and being told what's wrong with him, what's wrong with her. It happens more often than you'd like to think. It's not constructive, and it's damaging to the person's confidence. And it will not help that person move forward, and will not build any relationships. And I think, we really need to think about bridging the misunderstanding. And again, it comes along with that constructive conversation. We need to know, I need to know that you, as a person without lived experience, will understand what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. It's because, I have lived there, you have lived there. And we know the trauma that follows. And when we say that person may not be ready, maybe, just maybe you can listen to a person with lived experience and find out and try to understand and ask a question to really understand where they're coming from. I had a meeting, a series of meetings and peer engagement training sessions lately, and there was a person that was running a lived experience group who was not of lived experience. And it became really obvious that that person had a really negative attitude towards the people with lived experience, did not respect what they had to say. You know, one person did some, one person with lived experience in the group did something really amazing, like running for office, and she got a lot of votes. But you know, the person in charge had a really big heart, and you know, I don't take away anything from anybody who practices on conscious biases, because I know they care. But you know, it was the way that she didn't understand what that person went through to do what she had to do, and the responsibility she had. The person in charge did not understand the respect that that person needed from her. And so, you know, we need to really build on understanding. We need to work with the folks out there. You know, I talk to people with on the front lines. I talk to people in outreach teams, and I hear so many times. I get emails all the time that say they don't understand what I need. Can you talk to somebody for me? We need to take the time to understand. We need to take the time to build relationships. How can you expect a person to come into your organization when you have that understanding, or that you have that understanding that they might be just something less than the rest of your staff? It doesn't work. We need to build a bridge. We need to raise people with lived experience up to a point where they are equals, whether you can stand and look at them in the eye and say, and talk to them face to face, not at a down manner. You know, we need to unmask the previous negative notions about people with lived experience. Whatever that is, whatever you're carrying, and whatever anyone is carrying around in their head about people with lived experience, well, they've lost something. Yes, it's true. When we're on the street, we lose things. We absolutely lose our confidence. We lose knowledge. Things disappear because of the trauma and the tragedy. But guess what? They come back. They come back and they make people stronger. I am, speaking personally, I am a far better and stronger person than I ever was in my previous life. I made lots and lots of money, but I'm a better person and a stronger person from my experiences of being on the street. We bring strength of will and spirit. We bring wisdom from the streets. And some of us actually bring corporate life to our positions, corporate knowledge to our positions. We bring master's degrees. We bring PhDs. Folks, I'm Al Weeb of No Fixed Address. I'm a peer engagement and lived experience trainer, and feel free to contact me any particular time. And thank you for coming today and listening to me talk just a little bit about unconscious biases. Thank you.
And Al, one of the things that really resonated me as I go to share my screen is when you said people don't believe the achievements.
Mm-hmm. That's a hard one. That's a hard one.
Well, and what I would say, you know, sometimes it's the opposite even. Sometimes, like for me, people did not want to believe that I had lived experience.
But by the way, how long was I?